if you're breaking down the Vancouver Canucks prospects, it's obviously, Pettersson is head and shoulders above everyone else. I think that there's a big canyon of difference when you get to the other guys. But on this list of guys who have maybe the most potential to be turned into really good goal scorers, potentially elite goal scorers in the NHL, I think you start with Jonathan Dahlén, who comes in at number 4 on this list. He played in a second-tier league in Sweden this year. Had 44 points, the same as he did the year before. At first blush, kind of looks unimpressive and could be a red flag because you want to see that progression for a prospect from year to year, especially if they're playing in the same league. But remember, this is a guy who had mono at the beginning of the season. It kind of derailed his year. They had him set up for moving up to the Swedish Elite League in December, but because of his illness and how it was impacting his play, and because of all the things he was dealing with around it, they chose for him to stay in that second-tier spot. And by the second half of the season, he wanted to stay. He had a certain loyalty to that team. He wanted to get that team to win in the playoffs, to get elevated to the Swedish Elite League, and he ended up accomplishing his goal. And I think that there's a lot to be said for the loyalty he had, and certainly the way he played in the second half of the season, late in the year, and in the playoffs. He was probably the best player on that team. So the Canucks think big things from Jonathan Dahlén, who potentially could have started last year in North America and in the AHL. I think that that's where he's going to start this season. And seeing him in an AHL spot, seeing him on these smaller rinks, the team has been waiting quite a long time to see that, basically since the trade, because he's one of those guys who they believe his game, hash marks in, the way he plays behind the net, the way he can generate offense from the corners to the net, they think that his game will translate better on the smaller rinks than it does on the big rinks in Sweden. So, you look at the numbers that he was able to put up together, leading what turned into a very good team, and how that might help Utica this year. I could see him, getting off to a great start for Utica. If all goes well, maybe he's a call-up in the middle of the year, and maybe in the middle of this coming up season, he starts having a big impact for the Vancouver Canucks. Certainly they hope so, because the Canucks, the past 3 years, are the lowest scoring team in hockey, fewest goals in the game. They need goal scorers, okay? There's not a lot of obvious goal scorers in this top 10 list of guys who are not yet in the NHL. There's a couple. One of them's on Dahlén. So a lot is depending on him to become the guy we think he can be. And what we think he can be is kind of a cornerstone piece on this line that is going to be comprised of Pettersson at center and Dahlén on the wing. It just feels that that's going to be an inevitable setup, an inevitable line that we're going to see, maybe not this year, but years moving forward. He's got to take some more steps to get to that spot so that line can be an impact line, but it starts this fall.